Hello everybody and welcome to Team Dynamics 802 Online. Today we're going to begin revisiting our Vermont History Day project, and specifically we're going to be looking at research and primary and secondary sources in the hopes that we will begin creating an annotated bibliography. So as you know, since we have moved online, you want to come to the Team Dynamics Online tab. I come down here to the Vermont History Day tab and I'm going to click that. Now I'm going to go to the instructional materials page, and if I scroll down a little bit I see that there is a table of contents, and this table of contents follows the progression of the project. And right now we're in this inquiry and we finished our research on primary sources before school got out. So I'm going to click on that. And if you remember, we looked at primary sources and we found at least 2 primary sources on our topic, and we completed these primary source analysis sheets. Now what we need to do today is we need to start looking for secondary sources. Secondary sources are those that were not created firsthand by someone who participated in that historical era. They can be books or articles created by historians, and they could be based on the historian's reading of those primary sources, but they could be written a long time after the event. So what I'm going to ask you to do today is to watch this video, the difference between primary and secondary sources. What you are going to have to do is find 3 secondary sources for your project, and I have a secondary source analysis sheet that I'll put in here in just one second. And once you have your 2 primary analysis and your primary sources, and you have 3 secondary sources, you're going to start writing your annotated bibliographies. Now, annotated bibliographies, I'm going to come over here to this explanation, are just a deeper look at your sources. And let's go over this description here. So, an annotated bibliography consists of a list of entries providing facts on the sources you'll be using to do your research. Its purpose is to provide information on the relevance, accuracy, and quality of the sources cited. So each entry has 2 parts. There's a citation, and for Vermont History Day you're using an MLA format. And there's an annotation, which is 3 to 4 sentences that describe your resource through the answering of these questions. What was the purpose of the publication? What types of information can be found in the source? Is this a primary or a secondary source? And how was the source used? So this is an example, and this was an annotated bibliography on a book called The President Kennedy's White House Staff. And here's the MLA citation. That's part 1. And then part 2 is right here. This is the annotation. So I'll read the annotation. This book, a secondary source, is critical to understanding White House policy in the last days of President Kennedy's term because it provides full, unedited interviews with several of President Kennedy's key staff members. In addition to interviews with policymakers of the time, it also provides a comprehensive chronological listing of Kennedy's policies and legislation during his presidency, and includes excerpts from Kennedy's own diary. It was used to identify Kennedy's thoughts on specific policy. So again, we have the citation, which is here, and then we have the annotation, which is here. Now, I have some notes here. Notice that how the write-up does not provide specific facts that are stated in the book, such as the names of people, policies, or exact thoughts and feelings. It does, however, show that the information will come from 3 areas: interviews, a chronological listing, and personal diary entries. This shows the reader of your annotated bibliography what type of information was taken from the source and that it's factual and reliable. Teachers will be able to check these annotations and know whether you have enough sources and strong enough facts to really succeed in your research. It will also be obvious from your citations whether the sources themselves will be reliable. So I'm going to jump back to our Vermont History Day page, and what we're going to do over the next couple of days is you're going to review this annotated bibliography page, and then you are going to watch this video which shows you how to create an annotated bibliography. On Thursday of this week, we are going to begin creating our own annotated bibliographies based on our research. And then if you want to reference an example, here's an example from last year. So again, this was a group that was studying something called Title IX, and you can see that they had their bibliographical entries were here, and then they had their annotations here. Notice that they labeled them primary source 1 and primary source 2. So again, if I come back to my instruction page, what you want to be doing first is you want to be making sure that you have 2 primary sources, quality primary sources, which we talked about in class. You want to be sure that you have at least 3 secondary sources. You want to watch this video, which explains the difference between a primary and a secondary source. And then once you've completed that research, we're going to start writing our annotated bibliographies. So you want to probably review this explanatory page. You want to watch this video, and then the next step in the process will begin writing the first draft of your annotated bibliography. I know it sounds like a lot, and it is, but we'll break it down into its component parts and we'll get it done. Again, just to review, we'll make sure you have primary sources. We'll make sure that we all understand secondary sources and the difference between primary and secondary sources. And then we will begin building our annotated bibliography using these materials. Thank you very much for listening. As always, I'll be available for questions, and we'll work our way through it so that hopefully by the end of the week or by next week, we'll have a solid annotated bibliography and we can move on with our projects. Okay? Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to working with you on the Vermont History Day project.